What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR and Bitcoin today. So we have had a pretty steep fall off ever since breaking this wick. We're talking about this level here, saying if we were to break and hold this level, that it would increase our odds of a retest and a push down to this next structure. Right now, it looks like we're still in line with that idea. We didn't really get much of a retest though, because it was such an aggressive sell-off. Typically, you'd get a close here, come back for a little retest, and then have the move down. But sometimes when you have an aggressive move down like that, and you have clean candles on the left-hand side, like we always talk about, there's minimal traffic, so it allows price to fall a little bit quicker than usual. So I guess that's part of the reason why we never got the retest. Maybe we'll come back for it and continue down, or we could have a V-shaped recovery. But I would imagine that we're gonna at least test this level once, because you usually come back to retest whatever structure that you just broke. And we just broke the structure here at the 368 to around 360 level, and then this final wick was that last straw to really hold it up, and that was at 354. But we're kind of still in the same place that we were talking about prior. In the last video, we're still in pretty much this triangle piece right here. We have this downward sloping trend line that we're still playing underneath, but we still have this horizontal structure that's still in play that I would imagine that we find some kind of support. We'll probably chop a little bit once we hit here before making a decision, whether that's going to continue to consolidate or continue the trend. But right now, I kind of just anticipate some kind of chop in this region before ultimately making that decision to continue on down, or to chop and then break out, retest this structure, and try and push up higher. Or maybe even push up and retest this horizontal structure if we pull it out further. So that could also be another possibility. But the idea is more than likely going to chop once we touch the structure, if this holds as a strong level of support, which it should, because you can see we've had plenty of wicks off this level. It's acted as support and resistance. So I would imagine that we hold it and kind of stay compressed between these two levels until, like I said, making a decision to the downside or to the upside. We're pretty much just boxing price in, and then you let price do whatever it does, and then you can make your decisions based off of that. And if you're trading it, of course, you already know how to operate off of it. You box price in, and then you wait for your right setup on the breakout, and it can either be a breakout to the downside or to the upside. If you're a trader, you don't care if it goes up or down. You're just waiting for that breakout moment. On the weekly SMA, we are right above our 50. We almost touched it. We went down to 332. The 50 SMA on the weekly is at 329. So we were $3 away from touching it. We had an idea that we could have some kind of increased momentum to the downside once we got this close again on the or underneath the 20-week SMA. And on the daily, we've actually fallen underneath our 200-day, which is a very, very strong level. We were hoping to get a bounce off of that as we've seen it prior, but last time we actually touched the 200-day SMA, you can see it's the green and orange one here. We actually closed underneath it, similar to how we did here, and then we had an engulfing candle to reclaim the level, and then we, shot off of it. So we'll see if we get something like that. Hopefully that's the case, and maybe we can create some kind of inverse head and shoulders, left shoulder here, formation of a head, push up, maybe find a rejection, create that right shoulder, and then, to the upside from there. That would be the bullish scenario. Of course, if Bitcoin continues this downward momentum, then that is more likely not to play out. But if Bitcoin can, snap right back to it, I could see something like that playing out. Like I said, especially now that we're at the 200-day. Now we are underneath it, so the more than likely scenario is pushing back up to the 200, retesting, and continuing down. But like I said, we can always have an engulfing candle that screams higher. The weekly EMA the 8 EMA, you can see we fell even further, so we're even further down from it. We tend to revert back to it after large moves, but we'll see if that actually holds true here. And on the daily, it's kind of the same concept. So we'll see if we try to kind of just go sideways, and then maybe the 8 EMA will meet us. As we chop sideways, maybe that's when the 8 EMA will come into contact with price or one of these candles, and then we make a decision from there. On the daily volume was at 18 million, so a little bit higher than usual. The normal volume is like 12 million or so, and it was an extremely high volume day, but for the bearish side. So we definitely don't want to see that, but it is a high volume day though. On Bitcoin, we found that rejection off of the long-term trend line that was established from the 2021 highs. And you can see on the monthly, back-to-back major rejections. We broke underneath this structure here, and we had a pretty sharp sell-off. Now we still have a pretty key level of support here on these two candles here, off of these two weekly candles. And if you break it down onto the daily, you can kind of get a better idea. The structure is going to be somewhere in this area here, so we're kind of there at this point now. So that's going to be a key level to look at, but keep in mind that we still have this key structure over here. So this is a level of support, but this is also another level. So we have a couple levels of support that are going to be holding price up. So Bitcoin would have to fall underneath this wick, but as it breaks this wick, it's going to be running into this next level of support. So ultimately, if Bitcoin if it wanted to have a steeper sell-off, we'd have to break through 110 and get a hold and close, and then retest to continue on down. But right now, it looks like we have a lot of support between this key level of support and this key level right here. And it even holds true on a larger time frame. If you were to kind of draw that out, you have a major zone there. So, and that one's sitting at around 108 or so. So there's a lot of support in the low 110s here on Bitcoin. Bitcoin has just broken underneath its 50-day SMA, the yellow and pink. Pretty sharp sell-off. We'll see if we get to retest and continue on down. Hopefully the 20 moving average will start to ramp back up, because if we see the cross, that could indicate, potential further sell-off. But remember, these are lagging indicators, so any kind of cross to the downside is pretty much factoring in most of this move here. And on the 4-hour, it's pretty bearish for now, but remember, these things turn around relatively quick on Bitcoin once the momentum gets going on the upside. Tether dominance has absolutely ripped to the upside. We pushed much higher. We still have 4 days and 23 hours. But we pushed much higher, but we're still underneath these wicks here, which is a good sign. But on the daily, it's not the best sign because we closed above this key structure. So now it's looking like we could potentially get a retest for a continuation higher. But we definitely don't want to surpass this wick. If we were to surpass this wick over here, the structure, and eventually pass this one, then we could open up the idea of us retesting off of this structure here and potentially making it up to around that 4.8, which would be a massive sell-off on Bitcoin. And even running up to 4.6 would be a massive sell-off for Bitcoin. So we're just hoping to see a nice red engulfing candle to the downside for a continuation to the downside, and that'll spike up Bitcoin. We definitely just want to get back into this trend that we've been established in for the most part. We haven't even closed outside of it until now. It was pretty sturdy. I wonder maybe if I draw it a little different, maybe that'll change it, but I think how I have it drawn out is pretty solid. We want to get back underneath this downward sloping trend line and playing with these lower levels and getting closer to this blue line over here for that local top on Bitcoin. But for now, if we continue this trend higher, then we could be seeing tough times for Bitcoin. In terms of the large fib, we still have this 382 that's in play. That's sitting at 4.54 at the time. And if we were to see this one here, we're currently at the 786, which is pretty much they're trying to flip this. They're trying to flip this entire move back to being a bullish move, as it has been consistently bearish, getting our bounce off the 0.5 to 618. But now we have closed above the 786, which is the second to last line in the sand. And then pretty much the 886 is that last line in the sand. And once you hit 1, the whole move is completely over. So if we can get a red engulfing candle to the downside and start playing underneath the structure, that would be the best case scenario, and playing underneath this 4.26% area. On the daily SMAs, you can see that we have held our close above the 50-day SMA, which isn't the best sign because now it opens up the likelihood of a retest of this structure, which has confluence with this downward sloping trend line, horizontal structure, and the 50-day SMA. And that's going to be a lot of support to continue this move higher, which would put downward pressure on Bitcoin. And when we check out ETH Bitcoin, you can see off of this last leg here, we found rejection so far off the 0.5 to the 618. That's what this gray structure is. It's a 50% retracement of this entire leg. And remember, this chart shows the outperformance of ETH over Bitcoin. That's why it's ETH divided by Bitcoin. So we had this long-term trend line established to the downside. We broke out, pushing up higher, broke past this 50% mark off of this leg. And now, remember I told you guys this is going to be that second part that we have to break through if we want to see a push up to this 0.35 level and have ETH continue to outperform Bitcoin consistently. We just have to break above the structure, hold it, and retest off of it. And I think we could reach that 0.35 level, which would take Ether to higher valuations. And that doesn't mean that Bitcoin won't increase as well in value. Bitcoin will increase in value, but there will just be larger capital potentially flowing into ETH, or just in general, ETH's percentage gains will be larger because the market cap is smaller than Bitcoin's. But we are finding rejection off of this 20-month SMA, which is a very, very powerful level. So if we can close back above that, that would be a key to close up above it, retest off of it, and continue that push higher. On the weekly, we've already done that off of the 50, so hopefully we can do the same thing off of the 20. The reason I want to see ETH outperform Bitcoin is because that starts to kick up the possibility of altcoin beginning. And if you want to see insane valuations on Bitcoin, you need altcoin season to begin. You need that to happen, and you need a massive sell-off. And the only way to see this is to see altcoins outperforming Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance dropping to this level, which is where we could potentially be finding our local highs for this cycle, somewhere in this area. As you can see, we found it multiple times prior, 2 times. So we'll see if the third time happens. It doesn't always have to play out the same, but sometimes it rhymes. That's pretty much all I have for you guys. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on all of this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.